Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Spinner Rack. Today we have the whole crew here. We have Petey and Cal, bro. What's up, guys? Say what's up, guys.
What's up, guys?
Good to be back.
Hey.
Let's rock.
So today we're going to be talking about Doomsday Clock 11.
No, we're just talking about Doomsday
Clock.
Clock.
We're
In
going to say
general.
clock as many times as possible so I can see who's the first person to slip up and drop the L. Let's go.
Clock, 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 clock.
I'm not playing that game.
So, Cal, give us a breakdown of Doomsday
We're not going
Clock.
through the breakdown. Everyone knows this. It's a jigsaw puzzle. It's a freaking jigsaw puzzle of retcons. That's the only description you're going to get.
Again, Cal, like I was saying, can you just give us a quick background?
Very quickly. Watchmen characters have come over from their universe to the DC universe as their universe is in jeopardy. Rather, not their universe, but just the planet, okay, is in a total disarray. Ozymandias screwed up. Now he's going over to our universe to track down Dr. Manhattan, bring him back to his universe to try to save what's going on the Earth. Now that he's come over here, Dr. Manhattan's kind of like, whatever, don't want to be bothered. So Ozymandias is once again tinkering with everybody, trying to get everything in line so he can get Dr. Manhattan back to where he's supposed to do and thereby save the day once again with his evil machinations, though he still thinks he's a hero.
There's nothing wrong to think that. Aren't all villains thinking that they're heroes?
All right, you're going off topic.
So-
You're not talking about the validity of
Okay,
the
brilliant.
supervillain.
So what are we talking about?
No, I'm saying that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Doomsday Clock, not your ideas of becoming a supervillain
No,
or anything like that.
Oh my God.
Ideas.
I'm a hero.
As I was saying, and that's a, very good, very
Synopsis.
quick synopsis of it. But it ultimately is, it's almost like Jeff Johns' fan story, because it has elements. It not only has, because it's like saying it's supposed to be in the framework of the Watchmen, but it has some Dark Knight as far as, because they had some things of the news in Watchmen, but not as much. It's almost as much of that, like that first issue, so much of the news like the way the Dark Knight was, and even Dark Knight Strikes Again, where they were going through pundits and having people battling on pages and like
Definitely
having
see that.
a couple things going on. It has a little bit of crisis, the aspect of this child that was it Marinette and the mime, this child that supposedly has something to do with the story. And no, I'm gonna say it has a little of Dark Knight metal, because it's going over the histories, but that little footnote aspect of the histories, that's somewhere close to history of DC Universe / metal, because metal had very brief bits, and then just thrown in there for extra measures, Nathaniel Dusk to say, you know what, if you didn't buy it, you got to buy Nathaniel Dusk now, because now it's cost, I don't know how much. Is it worth anything, Nathaniel Dusk? Oh, good. So it's a lot of, as a fan, I think something we've talked about in the past of past days of actually having Superman being the catalyst of the entire DC universe as a history, and that's almost too much of a fan want, in my opinion, as a writer, to say let's try to do a retcon, because this is not retagging in the original Superman as what's the name. This is saying, like, we're throwing out like comic book time so we can just say that, hey, he started here. This is his publication time, but he actually started in 1938. And then there was these, he was again in, the rocket comes down again in 56, and then there's a car accident with the Kents, and that's just like, there's
It's 38, 56, 86, 2011.
Oh my gosh.
Those are the points that you decided to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
And so-
Actually, no, I actually missed one. 2006, 2011.
Oh, they.
So why did he focus on those?
Who? John's or
Yeah, Johns. Why were those?
those are the major. Well, and John's is correct. Petey's correct as well. I think for some writers that would be, that might be a heavy lift. That Superman is, the center and focal point of the DC universe, and also trying to, which I think is actually pretty commendable. Also trying to marry the living history with the actual fictional history. That's also, something that DC has been struggling with literally since 1956, when they decided, okay, we're going to have a new Flash as opposed to bringing back Jay Garrick. But the whole idea is those points in time. Okay, every time that you've had to tweak Superman's history, slowly but surely you have to tweak everything else or change everything else around him in relation to how he interacts with it. So 56, certain changes had to be made with Mort Wessinger was when Mort Wessinger was the editor. And there was another one, but it was like really slight. And this is around 1970 about the Bronze Age. But then the same thing, you get 1986 with John Byrne, Marv Wolfman, Jerry Ordway when they have that reboot for Superman. And it recalculates a lot of what was going on at the time. I mean, a lot of the minor characters like Hawkman may have, they may have like had like the slightest effect on the whole thing. But the bottom line is, once you've decided, okay, we're going to reboot him, it's pretty much open season to reboot a whole bunch of other people as well. The trouble with Superman is that the 1986 reboot was, it's very well remembered, and it was also very successful in terms of numbers, sales, profile. A lot of people look at that as when Superman started. Like, there's 1938, and then there was this big opening gap, and then it was 1986. And because of that, DC has always looked back. I mean, Crisis as well. DC has always looked back and said, look, if this guy's slowing down, let's just reboot him like we did in 86. That worked really well. And they did it 6 times between 1986 and now. At the very least 6 times. You had reboots that they did, and then they said, we don't like it. We're not even gonna go with it. But that was the point of DC doing it. In the comic, in Doomsday Clock rather, when Johns is coming about, and he's trying to, like, at least in fictional history, saying that at certain points there's always been something going on. There's been some threat or some malevolence, and it's trying to reshape the DC universe, which is very resistant, towards that stuff, because it's a universe predicated on hope. And so even if it does reboot, it starts here again with Superman. Why? Because in reality it starts with Superman. It's hard to do it and to break away from it with another character. We did have the discussion about this. It's just, you can do it because they've tried to do this before. They did this with Earth 2, where they presented Wonder Woman as the first superhero, to exist in the DC universe. And it never gelled. It never gelled at the end of the day because, they were doing this with her, and instead of them being called superheroes, they were called like Wonders or something of that nature. And it just never gelled. They started again leaning back towards what? The relationship of Superman and Batman, those type of things. It's very hard to erase what actually happened.
So is basically, some people are saying this is really an undercover, Doomsday Clock is really an undercover New Crisis. This is going to change the whole DC
But
universe.
it's also everything Petey just said. It's Crisis,
but I'm saying,
Dark Knight Returns.
Got it, but I'm saying, will it change going forward? Is this going to be a new rebirth, a new 52? At the end of the series, is that why?
Petey knows the answer.
Well, it can't. You know what? It's like one of those things. It's like I'm not even.
See that exasperation.
Instead of the comparison, I think the fact that it started in 2017 and it's possibly ending next year, or it's supposedly to end. It's going to supposedly end at the end of this year,
December.
But they might not make it because they're trying to make it better. But the hard part is if they plan to use this as another bump off point, they probably had to delay all the plans because they had a schedule for it.
And the schedule.
So it's hard to say they're going to reboot and say we're going to do another new DC universe when this thing has just been like, it's hard to say because
the answer is yes and no.
But if it was on time, it might have coincided with Bendis and Superman 1000 and all that stuff.
If you go to Doomsday Clock, however, we still have the classic Legion. Okay, even up to issue 11, where Saturn Girl disappears, we still have the classic Legion. So you have the Legion that's outstanding. Okay, the JSA was also not supposed to be making any appearance, but they already appeared in Justice League under Scott Snyder. Okay, so you have no idea necessarily what's going on with there. And then for me, there's other stuff that's just around the way. You have Jor-El. Jor-El is still alive. Mm-hmm. Okay, Jor-El is still alive. So I'm like, okay, Jor-El cannot stay alive. He's been alive for 2 years now. He started off as some crazed maniac trying to destroy the Earth. Now he's going off and he's part of the House of El, and they brought him into the family. This dude just tried to destroy the planet, and there was never addressed. So Doomsday Clock is supposed to work as that big. It's supposed to be like a big broom with DC on it. We're supposed we got to sweep up this mess, lay the foundation, and see about going forward. So that has to happen, because other than that, this was a waste of 12 issues. You didn't need to do all of this for nothing to come out of it. Trouble is, we're already being shown some of what's supposed to come out of it at the end of the day. Now, I don't know if Bendis was in talks. Rebirth started before Bendis was brought over, like about a year before. So I don't know what Jeff Johns what his plans were, or what was his idea that he wanted to do with the Legion. That might have been like, well, look, I want to do Legion, and they're like, Jeff, you're Hollywood now, and we pay you too much money. Let the guy write this particular book, and as we now give a quarter of the DC universe, now make it a whole third. Give a third of the whole DC universe over to Bendis. You'll have more free time. You can't really write this story. You're having troubles with Doomsday Clock, even though they're trying to blame Gary Frank. We know it's John's. So, that's where it comes in. But there's still a lot of stuff that needs to be corrected.
So basically, you're thinking this is going to be a reboot of the DC universe to some way.
How can it not? It's supposed to be It's supposed to be the future. This was supposed to be set like a year in the future when this is supposed to be happening. The trouble is, the future already caught up to it, and they're ahead. The characters that were supposed to be off limits are already there. And then you got characters still lingering around. Like, what the hell is this guy still doing here? Why is Jor-El still alive? Are you really going to change the origin of Krypton where, hey, Superman's not the only survivor to get off the planet with the exception of the Phantom Zone? Jor-El made it?
What's your take on that?
Dude, I don't think he has any questions for me. So I'll just go on my own. I think there's also a process here of, it's also hard to say he just took, it almost seems, because there's no real reboot of Superman. You could say there's maybe under the Mort Westlinger Superman and then all of the fantastical stories that was done in that period. But there's no actual reboot outside of the point when Flash, the actual DC reboot was Flash, Green Lantern, the new Adam, that sort of thing. So it's just saying, you know what, I don't have one, but this is sort of a reboot, and Superman was still here, so he's kind of in this thing. Because in
1956?
Yeah, there's no real reboot for Superman.
That's the whole... They had to coincide, because they had a retcon for Superman before they did anybody else, and that was with Superboy. Because originally Superman came to Earth,
But that's like,
Superman.
Isn't that even later? That's 48.
No, that was Superboy was earlier than 48.
Then that's where your reboot would be.
They never explained it, and
But
then with 56 you had the Earth 1 and Earth 2. So you had to explain, hey,
but that's in the
Daily
Flash,
Star,
though.
Daily Planet,
That's the
all
Flash.
that stuff. But
that's saying there's no actual reboot of Superman. As you know, it's still pretty much the same character and explaining. All right, now we sort of have this, but that thing, it's hard to say because he's saying
it always comes back to that first appearance because you go to the Flash discovers there's Earth 1 and Earth 2.
Yes, that's in the Flash.
That's fine, but then you go back. Okay, there was an Earth 1 and Earth 2, so whose adventures were we reading back here? Was it Earth 1 Superman or Earth 2 Superman, since he's the first superhero? And that was the history you had up until, 86?
But you're saying there's no...
Hey,
there's
not
no
me.
actual... I know, I'm just saying there's
no...
go
fight with Johns.
I am, that's what I'm saying. I can't... I think that's where it goes to the, the fan in him saying, you know what, they did work it out, saying, okay, here's Earth 2, these stories happened before, this, that, and the other, but the catalyst for everything as far as superheroes is Superman, right?
Okay.
The catalyst for the saying that superheroes work again is the Flash, Green Lantern, that influences Marvel, and Marvel does that. Even though they have some Superman influences, obviously Thor having a cape, that sort of thing, and the head Thor being Marvel Superman. So you have Superman still the big influence, but it's like saying, you know what, I need this to work. And that's the same thing that happens because it's like the New 52 and 86 reboots, and even maybe, I don't know if 0 years an actual reboot.
Soft.
But it's like if you go to like the stuff like, what was it, like Mark Waid's Rebirth. But it, that thing is like he introduced the Superman's emblem being hope and that sort of thing, and it's like
it doesn't even count. But because he did the whole thing, and then afterwards they said, you know what, we don't like it.
But I'm saying, I understand that.
They published it and said we don't like it.
But I'm just saying, the fans. This is the thing. That's what Doomsday Clock is going to be. The fans are going to be like, no, Birthright fixed all the stuff that was missing. I was like, no, he picked the parts that he liked to get it through. It's a fan. It's not going in and saying, you know what, this is editorial proof going to make sense of it.
Then you had Secret Origin afterwards. And
that's another one. That's let's pick my favorite stuff, and it's like I'm doing a reboot.
Secret Origin, to be honest, out of all of them, that works the best. That works the best because you don't have to abandon everything that came before. and you still
Is
keep the stuff that really you're going to need to keep because you're going to bring it back anyway.
No,
because
It's taken over
you
what,
can reboot-
2017.
you can
till now.
reboot. No,
And I think they've lost
Time-
steam
no.
in terms of what they were
no,
doing
they have
initially.
not. This is building steam. Regretfully, it's becoming. If you go online, people are like, "Yes, this is a good story. This is."
No,
the
we're not
best."
saying it's not a good story. We're
No,
just saying,
they're saying
Do
it
you know
was
what
like
this
it
story's
works.
gonna- this story's gonna-
people, everybody was reading it. Issue 10 was when everybody started actually paying attention to it. Because up to that point, you had issues here and issues there, and you could like what was going on. But issue 10, okay, that was the watershed moment for a lot of people. Like, oh, I actually need to be paid.
When
That's when you
Superman
actually
is
started
the-
to need to focus in on
when
it. So that's
Superman-
one
when they
thing.
said Superman basically is the essence of the beginning of the superhero.
Yeah, which just surprises me that's like a big deal for people. It was like, look, it's DC. You know, it'll be the
when
same
you
thing.
have
It'll be the
one
same
third
thing
of
if
all
you.
titles Batman, it is for a lot of people. You know what I'm
All
trying to
right,
say?
and that's
But
not good. I mean,
I'm not going to go there. I'm just throwing that out there. You know.
I don't. The thing is, I don't
you
have
live
a
home. Okay.
I don't have
Live
a.
home.
Yeah, limp.
Oh my gosh.
Is that a threat on national TV
Damn right.
Oh.
for telling the truth? So, Peter, what were you saying?
The problem with this book is if you throw in well, Saturn, you do the what's that you basically do the person from the future, throw in an insane asylum with Saturn Girl,
That's Psycho Pirate.
and like you can't do stuff like well, I guess you can. I'm saying you can't. Then you have the Johnny Thunder character that they could have used with bringing in Dr. Manhattan with the whole "Say You" thing, and they're like, "No, we're not going to do that. We're going to use the cat."
He's been 11 issues of nothing happening.
Here's the cat. That's what I mean. But the cat is here, and the cat somehow is
You don't like
connection to-
Bubastis?
when they decide that he has to somehow bring back that with Alan Scott's lantern can bring Dr. Manhattan in. I'm like, I would be okay if you brought the third part to "Say You" and say, all right, this is all some funky sort of thing, but it's just like the cat was just a cat. And I was fine with that. And in the Watchmen, it was just a cat. But now it's saying, oh, since it died and somehow he brought it back, it has some sort of connection to. It's the classic comic book, something or another, to bring him into the scene. And it's like, what happened? Let's go back through the scene. The thing where the Joker, they catch, what's his name? Ozymandias is in the in the ship with Batman. Batman got no sense. He's just standing around. He just flips the ship up. Batman falls. He falls out of the ship. And then he's captured by the Joker in the mime, and he's just sitting there in the chair for like the longest period of time.
He got out.
You thought
But
that was a
nothing,
good spot?
He's
no,
doing better
it's-
than the comedian.
What?
You thought that was a good spot?
I said that's terrible.
Oh.
All that's terrible.
But you're laughing.
Oh no, there was this
Look,
great
that's
one where Batman
ridiculous.
is
Someone
swinging
falls
and they
in a
grab him
good.
by the
That's a
cape.
good point.
They grab Batman by the cape and they
He's
pull
trying
him
to
down
fight
and they
with me.
rough him up.
No, we're not. No,
See, that's
he's
why
just trying to argue with me.
You don't pull Superman's cape, but Batman's fair game. No big
Oh,
deal.
my
All you gotta do is
gosh.
truss him up in a chair and he's okay.
No,
said
then the
it.
Joker just says he just puts his hand in Batman's face. It's just like shut up, mom.
So the point I'm trying to say,
it's
is there any point to this at the end? Is there going to be a point?
Yes, there will be a
fight.
point.
It's just
And
spend
the point
12
is
years for a
called
fight.
$4.99.
$4.99.
$4.99 per issue.
Basically,
basically
getting
60
into
bucks.
a fight.
Well, sorry,
We're
that's what
going
it
to
really
see a
is.
fight in
Look,
this thing. It's
okay.
12 issues.
As a reader,
for a
I'm enjoying.
fight.
As a reader, I'm enjoying this. Okay?
You're looking past everything.
Again.
I was
As a
thinking-
reader,
Dr.
I'm enjoying
Manhattan.
this.
Dr.
If I'm
Manhattan
going to be
coming
critical,
back.
if I'm going to be critical of this, that's two different mindsets. So I'm able to compartmentalize. That's necessary.
That is
Okay?
ridiculous.
And as a reader,
For
I'm
your,
enjoying it.
You
for
can
your
do
big
that.
Superman battle.
Damn
I
straight.
understand for the art. I say, hey, I like the art. I'm not sitting around.
Are you kidding me? Do you know for years I've had to contend, okay, with well, let me not insult you.
What,
but-
with just him
but I've had to
punching him? That's what
I've
it's gonna
had to
be?
contend with all these guys, Superman versus Dr. Manhattan, and Dr. Manhattan being aggrandized to the point of like, when did he get these powers? He didn't have them in Watchmen. So finally, this question for me is going to be answered, and I know how it's going to be answered because you already answered in issue number 10. So
But
that's
this-
number one. Number two, okay, yes,
With a right hand.
as a reader.
It's going
huh?
to be ended with a right hand.
Yeah, maybe do two like you did with Doomsday. You know, come over here. Oh!
It's like,
Ah!
oh. So I've been tinkering. It's like, bad you. Like
Hey,
caveman style.
historically, if they're going for that, that is a Superman trademark. Hey, it's a really big problem. Everybody's like, hey, what are we going to do? And he comes from out of nowhere, punches it, and it's over.
That's not
Okay?
the Superman. 'cause
Gentlemen,
I will crack up laughing
Okay,
if that's
so
what happens.
thank you very much, gentlemen. I think we'll have to cut it off there because
Something happened mid-show, and someone parachuted out.
Hey, I told him.
Sort of like how Batman fell out of the.
He's limping home. He's limping home. Now let's get back to basics over here.
Now we're here. That's what I'm pointing out. We're here for a critical examination of this series, and I understand as a fan and getting to a point, it's like, you know what? As far as the writing itself, the stylized, almost almost like you're putting together a puzzle when you're reading this, which is even more aggressive than, say, the Watchmen was originally. But we're here to do some critique of this, and that's what I want to get out of you. The
major critique that I could apply to this, to be fair, I'd have to wait for issue 12, because I can pick at certain things going all the way up. But to be very fair, okay, a lot of the stuff that I may have an issue with, could be pulled together with issue 12. It's happened before in other stories. The main criticism that I had of this, and I mean, I think you were spot on in noticing that this is not a sequel to Watchmen. This is Crisis, Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns. But Johns had said something to this earlier, where this was a response to those stories that came out at that time, that those stories that were supposedly more mature, okay, when really they were just a little bit more mean-spirited at the end of the day. People were more cynical, okay, darker, just more cynical at the end of the day. Batman fighting Superman is this tour de force for a lot of people who didn't think superhero stories could be told of that type of, with that type of calendar, but at the end of caliber rather. But at the end of the day, for me as a comic book reader, I still look at it like, well, he's plugged into a lamppost, dude. Why don't you just cut the power, fly him up, and that would have been the end of it. So, there's a good amount of webbing over that whole thing that people refuse to try to peer through. But it really is an examination of that type of storytelling. And I thought the first issue was solid, and then it was very slow up into certain points. We have characters thrown in there that we still don't know what the hell they're supposed to be doing there, even including Johnny Thunder, who I understand why he's supposed to be there, but if I would have to explain it to somebody, I would fall flat because it wouldn't make any sense. The Marionette and the Mime have had more screen time, and they really serve very little purpose. You have a Rorschach II who's there, and supposedly he has some important role to play. What the hell is it? So everything there's a lot of loose threads, a lot of just dangling, I don't want to say dangling participles, but there's just a lot of, dangling threads, if you will, that, you're looking, is it possible for all this to be tied up in issue 12? And the answer is yes, it's possible. It's unlikely. I'm pretty certain some of the major ones will definitely be tied up. And I also feel like there was a shift in the story at some point, because I remember John saying he didn't want this to be just a fight between Dr. Manhattan and Superman. And I don't think anybody's tuning in to issue 12 because they want to see Superman talk Dr. Manhattan down.
And do the Cyclops to the Sentinels. The mutation comes from the sun. Oh, I'm going to go out to the sun and just kill myself.
I think I really do think they want to. And to be honest, I think a lot of people want to see him clean his clock at the end of the day, which is surprising. I thought there was a different thing that was going on, but Superman appeared in the first issue and then was very much removed, and we didn't get to see him again till like issues, was it 8 or 9? He wasn't really a player.
Those ones, even if somehow I don't know how he keyed into the Ronnie Raymond thing. Those moments were interesting because it brought a more human level to it, of having in Firestorm Field he turn these people to glass, and then he has a moment where he's with Superman and he saves this person, brings the kid back to normal, and then they go to Russia. Of course, it's the best. That's the best writing for me. Was like, this is gonna go awry because it's like he already did it. They're not gonna be cool with this guy just fixing it, and everything goes awry, and then Superman gets some negativity on him.
Well, that was the whole setup anyway, because even from earlier we saw that the only hero that was still trusted was Superman. Of course, if you're a reader, like, well, that's gonna have to change. That can't happen. And again, it's the same thing. You as the reader can see where everything is going wrong.
Yeah.
Just listen to Superman. If Superman's there, he wouldn't bring this guy here if he thought there was going to be any danger. Just listen to Superman. Let the guy do his stuff. No, everybody's going to overreact, overreach, and then of course when Superman does his thing, it's not going to be seen this way from the front. It's going to be seen from over his shoulder. So all you see is him hitting the tank. You won't see that. No, he's trying to save. He's trying to save all of this. I mean, but again, that goes back to, I think, the cynical stuff that we were getting, or the stories that were very popular that were really highlighting and I guess dramatizing that sort of cynicism, where it's always going to be it's always going to be perceived incorrectly. Okay, or what we think, no, that positive thing we think, no, there's always some undercut to that, and it's it's always some really whack out story at the end of the day. So, but I think there was some sort of shift. I really do think there was some sort of shift, and this wasn't the original intention. That Superman was supposed to be a player, but I'm really not sure that even issue number 10. I'm not sure if that was the original plan to go with that sort of thing, and that there was some story restructuring at the end of the day. I think part of that might have happened because things at DC were also restructured as well in terms of where they wanted to go. And there's a lot of backstory. If you're I mean, it's unfortunate we don't have issues like well, you used to have Back Issue magazine, but you used to have these nice little newspapers and such where you can get some of the behind the scenes stuff going on. But I'm positive that what Johns was thinking on, had to roll and had to be a little bit more elastic based on the fact that the story is going on. The story isn't finished, and it's well past the time when it was supposed to be. But any of the major stuff that I would like to say, I've got to hold on for issue number 12.